All right, today we're jumping into the book of First Chronicles. And look, if you're thinking this is just some dusty old book full of names and dates, I want you to stick with me. Because this is actually a powerful story written for a people at a total crossroads. A story about what it takes to rebuild an entire nation's identity, right from the very beginning. So let's start with the huge question that this book is really trying to tackle. Just imagine this for a second. Your people, your community, has been scattered for generations. You finally get to come home, but the home you knew is gone. And you're left with this massive question. Who are we now? I mean, where do you even begin to rebuild something that's been lost for so long?
Well, the answer that the author of Chronicles gives is kind of beautiful in its simplicity. The solution? You retell your story. You have to go all the way back to the beginning and remind yourselves where you came from, who your heroes were, and what made you, well, you.
So, how exactly does the book do this? You've got to understand, this wasn't just some casual history project for a library shelf. Nope. The Book of 1 Chronicles was written with a very specific, and I mean urgent, purpose in mind. It was written for the generation of Israelites who were just returning from this long, painful exile in Babylon. They were totally adrift. They needed an anchor, and this book was meant to be that anchor, reminding them of their identity and, this is the really important part, their spiritual heritage.
And the way the author sets this up is super intentional. It's broken down into 3 main parts. First up, you've got the genealogies. We'll talk about those in a sec. Then there's a really short look at the fall of King Saul. And finally, a massive deep dive into the reign of King David, which is, without a doubt, the heart and soul of the whole book. Okay, so let's start where the book starts, with what a lot of people just skip over, the first 9 chapters of names. I get it, it can seem like a slog. But these lists aren't just boring filler. They are the absolute foundation of the entire story being told. Think of it like this. The author is basically drawing out this huge family tree for the whole nation, and it stretches all the way from Adam, the first human, right down to the actual families returning from Babylon. It was a powerful way of saying, hey, you belong. You have a place in this incredible, unbroken story. So once those roots are firmly established, the story just, boom, jumps right to this critical turning point in Israel's history, the transfer of power from their very first king, Saul, to their most legendary king, David. And what's really fascinating here is the pacing. The story of King Saul, his whole rise, his reign, his tragic fall, it's all covered in just 1 chapter. That's it. It basically serves as this short, cautionary tale, like a prologue. And then, bam, the book pivots straight to King David, who gets a whopping 19 chapters dedicated to him. That contrast couldn't be more deliberate. It's screaming at the reader, pay attention. This is what matters. Saul is the past, but David is the model for the future. And that brings us right to the heart of First Chronicles. The story of David here isn't just a simple biography. It's presented as the golden age, the absolute ideal for what the nation could be and should be again. So this is the key takeaway, right here. The author presents David's entire reign as a kind of spiritual blueprint. It's a how-to guide for the returning exiles on building a successful kingdom and, this is the most important part, how to center their entire lives around the proper, wholehearted worship of God. Yeah, and this intense focus on worship is what really makes First Chronicles feel different from the other historical books, like Samuel and Kings, even though they're often talking about the very same events. You can really see the difference in perspective here. The books of Samuel and Kings give you the broad political and military history, warts and all, but Chronicles, it zooms way in. It's much more interested in the spiritual life of the nation, the priests, the Levites, the temple singers, and all the detailed preparations for building the temple. And this quote really just nails it. The focus is squarely on the spiritual and the rituals of worship. The writer isn't just asking, so what happened back then? They're asking a deeper question. What does our history teach us about how to worship God correctly and rebuild our community around Him? And that really leaves us with this final big idea to chew on. What the Book of 1 Chronicles shows us is that history is never just about the past. It's a tool, a powerful tool, that we use to make sense of our present and to actively shape our future. Which kind of makes you wonder, right? What stories are we retelling today to define who we want to become tomorrow?